We haven't had audio going for the first few minutes. I fixed it. For YouTube.
Well, they missed all our weather banter, so
I'll just stick it in there. I'll like try to find a way to like make it like I don't know. I'll probably just post the podcast like I did the last one. Anyway, hello again, YouTube. We are here, and I apologize for all of that. So, last Wednesday they discussed a bit of top lane, but today we're gonna turn it back around and go over all of the listener questions that you sent in, or most of them. We have quite a few for out of the document, and I think I have a few others just in case we make it to the end here. So I think we're just going to jump right in. Oh, no, we're not going to jump right in because I have one announcement to make. Battle Arena is back. If you remember Battle Arena, the way to get better by playing this game and having people tell you how to get better at it, it's not specifically the same as it was previously, but every Thursday at, I want to say it's 7 o'clock Eastern time, hop in the Looking for Group channel in Discord. You can join games with our lovely shoutcasters, and they will record them and post them up to YouTube for you. So...
And next week, Vrail and I are going to be supporting one of the games against each other, so it's going to be fun.
Are you
so
really?
Get in there. Yeah, we're both going to play. We said Soraka versus Janna, but we'll see. See how it goes.
So you just want to make it as boring as possible?
Exactly.
All right. So yeah, go check that out. That is Battle Arena every Thursday. Shoutcasted games. Just join our Discord, discord.trinityforcenetwork.com, and they will take care of you from in there. So we're gonna jump into do we have a weekly challenge? Can anyone like off the top of their head come up with a weekly challenge?
Mine are always jungle related, so you got to come up with a laning one this time.
Well, I mean, I came up with the one that everyone comes back to is to use the potion right away, right? Like everyone loves that one and always yells at me about it. You know, I think my weekly challenge this week is to look at the runes outside of the norm, like kind of like, you know, if you're picking a rune page, go ahead and look at it. Well, if I was going to pick Comet in this situation, would I do better with Dark Harvest? Or can my champion get use out of Aftershock instead of Comet for laning? Or rather, I'm using Aftershock. Could I use Comet to help get ahead in the early game and then just kind of forget about that mastery later, or rune as we go later? Use this week to look at runes in a different light than you previously looked at them. Because especially a lot of you are done with your climb, or not done with your climb, but you just started your climb. You're trying to figure stuff out. You've done your placement matches and you're wondering, shit, I'm stuck in bronze, stuck in silver. What can I do? And I think that's one step, is to look at things and try to, you know, figure out a way that you can use runes differently. I know, for example, Garen, Todd has been talking a lot about Press the Attack and Blade of the Ruin King Garen, because he's trying to figure out the best way to play that champion. So it's something that you can do as well.
Yeah, and if you're a player that doesn't maybe understand all the possibilities, you can look to someone like Todd, who's a master of the champion. Or whoever your champion is, just go hit up otp.gg. I always spam on this. Just check out those top ranked players and see what they're doing on the champion, because sometimes you can find some pretty innovative stuff in there that maybe everyone hasn't picked up on yet.
Yeah, and with 8.4 coming out, it's going to be a really good time to start playing with masteries and whatnot, because a lot of things are going to change in 8.4. Ooh, it looks like we lost Lance for a moment. We'll keep going even though the scene looks a little funky. We're just going to jump right into listener questions for the night. So Bop, he writes in, I run Ignite out of the top lane just because it's easier to get those champs that heal and take those 1 HP squishies that don't expect it. How do I still make presence felt on the map when I don't run Teleport?
Okay, so it's too bad Todd isn't here because he's the man to answer this. But basically, I've played quite a lot with Todd, and what he does is he doesn't just stay in his lane the whole time. Whenever he thinks something's going to break out mid or in the enemy jungle, or whenever he's far ahead and he shoved the wave in and he can't tower dive, he's going to make sure that he gets himself into Fog of War and moves around. It kind of reads the map a little bit more. Teleport can be a crutch often. You run teleport, you don't have to think about things until fights break out, and then you can just TP in and deal with it from there. But when you don't have teleport, it really makes you think about how quickly can you rotate. So doing something like taking Ignite and, you know, after you shove in waves, make sure you get into Fog of War. Same amount of mid lane. Like I'll touch on your op.gg in 1 second because I have it up in front of me. But if you're also a mid laner, like the classic, you know, Acel's, Talia, whatnot, you shove the wave in and then you immediately go into Fog of War. Whether or not you're roaming, it still puts pressure on the map, if you know what I mean. Just the fact that you're not seen creates pressure. So I don't know if Lance, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, as soon as you dip into Fog of War, people will start pinging out those Mia pings, and you should immediately start seeing lanes start to fall back a little bit, just out of respect for you suddenly showing up in their lane and, they don't want to die because they want to win. So, yeah, just dip in the fog. Go ahead.
I'm trying to kind of like throw this back to 511, which was Wednesday's podcast. Todd talked a lot about top lane and how to make your presence and whatnot, and he spent some time talking about teleport. And he did mention that like the game has definitely shifted to a point where teleport is the meta and teleport is what you're taking. The tanks are taking it because you can make your presence known anywhere on the map. But like the big thing is like top right now, especially in a solo queue environment, you are very much on an island, and it's really hard to make your presence known. Like if you aren't inserting your will on the enemy laner and forcing the jungler to come up and deal with you, or forcing the enemy mid laner to come up and deal with you, there's not really much else you can do without Ignite. Like you need to get that level 2 kill, you need to get that level 3 kill, and then you need to just keep doing that over and over, get that level 6 kill. Like that's the only way you can really make Ignite worth your time on the top lane, is if you are forcing the jungler, that like Beaver, if someone's doing that, you kind of forced to go look up there. You either leave them alone completely and just say fuck it, or you're forced to go deal with it.
If someone takes Ignite, they want to kill the enemy laner. There's no two ways about it. Out of top, less so out of mid, because that's just different landscape there. But yeah, if you're taking Ignite, you're looking to get an early kill and snowball that into pressure in your lane, which will in turn bring people up. Or like I said, you can also dip into the fog of war, invade the jungle, make sure it's well warded, because there comes a point in time where if you do manage to use your Ignite and leverage a couple kills, you're going to be way stronger than most junglers if they're not snowballing. So, make that top side jungle yours, make the top side of the map yours, so that you know what's going on up there, and you get to dictate how the plays are made, not the enemy coming to, respond and then it's sort of like throttle your lead, because you don't want to make too many mistakes when you have Ignite, because it's pretty easy to get punished.
Yeah. It's definitely, I think the top is probably one of the harder lanes to play, just in general, because, granted, mid has to make the presence known by roaming, bot just has to not die, essentially, and find a way to farm, and then top, you're stuck on an island, and I know we said that in the whole top lane podcast, but you really are stuck there by yourself unless somehow you have pulled jungle pressure, either way. But, like, It's really hard at this point to take Ignite in the top lane and use that to snowball an advantage to the point that your team is getting an advantage out of the kills and whatever you're doing out of the top lane. Unless you are some kind of like tank that is like super fed, you've taken the tower early and now you can roam and use your power elsewhere. Being a fighter or being a bruiser that doesn't have the same impact, and that's the reason a lot of people are taking TP, because the CC and the amount of the body that you bring to team fights through teleport is more important than you getting kills.
Yeah, taking teleport is gives you a very forgiving lane, and top lane with Ignite cannot be forgiving, especially since the champions you're taking Ignite on, like you said, they're fighters, they're looking to get kills. So you're inherently not going to have as much value to your team if you don't snowball. Whereas if you're playing Maokai, you're not going to be taking Ignite. You just need a free lane, and no matter whether you're 0-2 or 2-0, your impact in team fights is going to be pretty similar, if that makes sense, because you're just building tank items and using your crowd control abilities to make your presence felt. Whereas if you're a fighter and you haven't got those 2 kills, you're going to be a lot weaker if you're 0-2, right? Because you don't have the same damage output that you might. So it's definitely tricky. But looking at Europa.gg, you have a 61% win rate, 41 games on Garen, 13 kills a game, 6 deaths. That's not bad, dude. You're in what, bronze 4? Yeah, just keep going. I think you'll be able to climb pretty easily if you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
I played a game in bronze 5 the other day. I would like to mention with my friend who's also in bronze 5. He's not in bronze 5. He's in like bronze 1. So we're in that MMR, and I was playing against a Garen, and obviously I was doing reasonably well. I think I was 10-0 or something on Trinity in the jungle, but still, the enemy Garen was like he was an issue for me. Hopefully, I don't think it was you. He took teleport and grasp. The guy was just running around the map, taking kills, and I know it's kind of bad of me smurfing and stuff, but I think if it wasn't for my presence just pushing waves, then he probably would have been able to take the game. But yeah, It's a different world in bronze. Completely different world.
Yeah, it is.
I could do a full episode on my experience because it's crazy.
Well, speaking to your experience here, I know this isn't necessarily goes along with the listener question, but it's something that should be discussed even momentarily, is that I've had quite a few people write in where they have suggested we bring on bronze or silver or lower ranked people and like ask them questions and kind of interview them to get an idea what the game is like down there. Now, I don't necessarily think there's a podcast out of that talking to people on air about that, but more like interviewing them outside the podcast to get the idea of how the games are played out.
That's actually a cool idea because I've had that thought for a patron episode. We could put it into a normal listener one, but I have a few close friends of mine who are very well spoken, and they play in bronze and silver. And I was thinking about bringing both of them on and then discussing with me and Vrail and maybe another high elo player about the differences between the elos. Maybe try and really hash out what the differences are. But when I was playing yesterday in bronze, like, stuff just happens all over the place. Doesn't make any sense. Like, people will chase kills for days. There's no sight of what's important. So I didn't die. I can't bring up the game, but I think I ended up with 20 or so kills. But most of the time I wasn't even fighting. I was just making sure all the waves were pushed in. So whenever the enemy team did get like a clean ace, almost a clean ace besides me on their team, they couldn't do anything with it because all the waves were pushed into their towers. So I wasn't split pushing. I was just making sure the minions were always shoved towards their side of the map so that they couldn't do anything with it.
I've played my fair share of bronze and silver games on Smurfs, helping out different players here and there. And the thing I noticed is just, one, yes, absolutely, minion pressure is huge because people don't know how to deal with the fact that, they've just aced the team, but both their side lanes are pushing, and now they're losing outer towers just out of the fear, the pure mass of minions that are pushing those down. But also to add on to that, having some kind of presence on the map where you are, one, manipulating the waves, and two, causing pressure but not dying through, kind of like that Trinity, right? Like, you're in the top lane, you're managing the waves, you're pushing it out, now you're in the jungle taking the minion camps. I've won a game purely out of being Nunu and running through the enemy jungle and just taking his camps, right?
You don't have to kill a single person to win a game in bronze. And the thing is, people will just do the same thing. They just group up, not even group. They'll just, like, if there's a fight going on bot, that fight could last for like 8 minutes because people keep respawning and running bot. Yeah. And they're like, they don't care what's going on top because that's not the game to them. The game to them is just getting kills. And your team and the enemy team are probably the same. So if you can just break out of that mindset and figure out, like, generally how to win a game of League of Legends. I'm not saying this in a mean way. Like, if you're stuck in low bronze, just try and figure out what the basic fundamentals are of winning. And it's getting towers, pushing in nexuses, and then eventually getting the base, right? It's not too difficult. But if you can sort of see when the opportunities arise, like, oh, these guys are all bot, maybe I can push in, get mid tower, rotate, get top tower, back, buy an Infinity Edge, and then I'll head bot and get a couple kills, and I'll do the same thing over and over again. It's sort of, it's difficult to get out of.
Stop playing support ADC in bronze, right? Play top jungle mid. I would just say even top jungle is probably the best way to get around it.
AD, it's harder.
You can do it.
It's harder.
It's impossible. You have no base.
You have to play I think you have to play Misfortune.
Yeah, you have to just get a super lead essentially if you're playing AD, and then you have to walk around the map and two-shot people. But like if you're playing anybody, you don't even need to play an engaged champ. You just need to play somebody that manages waves really well and can get out of sticky situations. Hell, Garen can do that more than less because of his new W. But like, just being around the map and understanding you don't need to fight. Like, you could win a bronze game as 0-0 and 0 by just manipulating waves and pushing around. And like I previously mentioned, I can specifically remember a game I played as Nunu where I upset the Cho'Gath so badly he AFK'd because I was in his jungle the entire fucking game taking like just pieces of his camps or big camps, and he couldn't do anything, right? And when you remove somebody else from a bronze game to make it, essentially it's 4v4 at that point, but you impart your will because you now can run up to the enemy and dive them under the tower, or whatever it is. I don't suggest diving, but I think Beaver understands what I'm trying to say through this.
Dude, I'm definitely not gonna lie. I played 3 games. I actually lost one of the games. I was playing Yasuo jungle, and it's certainly, my Yasuo skills are not great. They're better than bronze, but they're not great. And I was just really relying on my raw mechanical skills to carry me because I had like 550 CS, like hundreds more than anyone in the game. But the enemy team had like 2 suppressions, a silence, a couple more crowd control. I just couldn't get through it all, so I ended up losing. But that's because I didn't play to the win condition, which was probably split pushing more. But
yeah, split push in 1v2, right? Like you can't expect to be 500 CS, 11, 2 and 1, 13 or something, and actually win a bronze game when the rest of your team is just sucking, ass right?
Pretty
Because
much.
if the rest of the team is getting everything shoved down their throat and you're the one stealing all the kills, you can't carry the game. Because I understand that at the end of the day, we're playing against other real people, and bronze players will still hit you with CC. They still have they still have an understanding of how to engage or disengage. They might not do it as well as other players, but they still have an understanding of what they need to do.
They knew they needed to kill me, and they did it over and over again. And
Right.
props to them, because I mean, they didn't really play the map. They all had terrible CS, but they had played crowd control champions, and they shut me down. So I was like, you know what? Some games you just can't win, and at the end of the day, that's just how it happens. Maybe not picking Yasuo jungle would have helped.
Probably.
But anyways, I could do a challenge on my stream where I just don't kill anyone and try and win a game on a champion that I'm comfortable on, just pushing waves. Maybe I'll do that.
Just play someone like Trinity or something.
I'll just play Trinity jungle.
There was a strategy.
Zero damage one.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Out of the jungle might be a bit different, right? Because then I can gank, but I won't take any kills. I'll just give assists. Well, we'll see how it goes. Maybe I won't gank. No, I won't even gank. I'll just do it. Do it raw. No ganks.
Just don't get the kill or assist. You're just there to push waves. Like
I'll just walk up, slow them, and then just laugh.
There's something else. When I was playing jungle, granted I'm a terrible jungler, so I was just playing jungle in bronze silver. I could walk up to a lane and people get really mad at me. Why are you pushing this? Etc. But like we get taking the tower and they're kind of like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. But you have to have that understanding of when and why we're doing something, right? Sure. I see the enemy jungler bot. We're coming top and we're gonna dive this guy or we're gonna push him out. We're gonna take the tower. That's why we always talk about a lot of like game presence and game knowledge, having an understanding of where you need to be and why. Like if you're playing jungle and low elo, just watching where the enemy jungler's at, and then not reacting directly to the jungler by being in the same lane, but rather going to the opposite lane and doing something there is just as powerful and probably more powerful in a bronze game where kills don't matter.
Yeah. So. At the end of the day.
No.
But anyways, different world. But that'd be cool to do that sort of 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 sort of podcast with some lower elo players and really hash out the differences.
Silver's a magical place.
I've been there. I know. I've been there.
Even right now, it's a completely different place than it was the first day of the season. First day of the season, you had all the low plats getting placed there in high silver, and now you're actually having people who belong there or who've gotten boosted up a little bit further than they should have.
Also, people don't know how to build either.
Oh no, I had a heal exhaust Orianna support the other day.
It's not great.
I've seen worse.
It wasn't great, but she somehow helped me out pressure that lane. As Tristana Orianna helped me out pressure Caitlyn Jaina.
I know Dom and I have talked a lot about Orianna support and how we really want it to be a thing because her whole kit screams support, but her mana costs are just really high, and so that really gates her from being able to support really well. And it's mana cost and scaling as well, because if you don't,
she scales so well with AP,
right? And if I'm always just kind of like every time they make a change to support, I'm like, is Orianna gonna be here? Is Orianna coming? It's just not enough ever. So it's probably never going to happen, but I can always hope. Maybe with Twin Shadows becoming a thing for supports, maybe I can see an Orianna, but I doubt it. But we were looking at that. I know Dom and I were talking about different champions that could potentially support now that like Twin Shadows is a thing, or like you can get a budget mage build, and Syndra can do it. Orianna potentially, probably not as well. And there's other champions. Nami obviously she support, but you can have something like 300 or 350 AP for a really budget amount of gold by the end of the game.
The problem is she's just going to be, with Orianna specifically, since she's such a good wave clear champion in mid lane, I think she'll always just be better mid, even if she gets buffs that are geared towards support.
Well, it's not necessarily about her being a support main. It's kind of like, you remember the beginning of last season, where people were picking Syndra support, or even now this season, people were picking Xerath support just because the runes work so well for him. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, Trundle worked really well at a top lane, but just by the merit of his kit, he actually worked pretty well for support for a while, and still more than less does. It's the same thing with Orianna. You just kind of look at it as like a counter pick. Miss Fortune was a strict counter pick support to Zyra, and that could potentially be the same thing. And I don't know what it is yet, or if it even could be a thing, and it probably never will be, but you can kind of like see my train of thought when I'm looking at these champions and wondering, maybe this can work.
And when you sort of think about the power of flex picks in pro play, that can definitely lead into it as well. Being able to, the first time Miss Fortune was picked, they're like, oh, it's Miss Fortune AD carry, and then they're like, no, it's Miss Fortune support, and they absolutely destroyed the other team because they had no idea what was going on. So flex picks can be can be definitely powerful, but yeah.
Well, hey, thanks Bop, for giving us that.
Dude,
one listener question down, 30 minutes in.
You provided us with some insane discussion.
All right, we're going to shift gears here. We never talk about Arams, but Inky Pinky wrote in, and they said, do you have any tips on playing Aram or how to build differently for Arams? I have been looking for guides and things, but I haven't found very much on just Aram. Do you have any resources you would recommend?
Okay, well, I played Arams all week because I got to Plat 2, and then I went on an 8-game losing streak. Didn't get demoted because my MMR is crazy high, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give ranked a break for a week, so I just jumped into some Arams and started playing. So tips I can give you is, a lot of it is like I transfer my like champion building knowledge over from tanks and bruisers over to ARM. So if I'm on tanks and bruisers, I find it quite easy. Basically, figuring out how I usually count the AP sources versus AD sources, and then rank them on how much damage they do. Usually, there's a lot of AP. So picking up Warmog's armor is always great on tanks. Picking up Adaptive Helm is great. So if there's like 4 APs, I'll go Warmog's, Spirit Visage, Adaptive Helm, and then I'm unkillable. And then just whatever for the rest, right? Like maybe one anti-AD item. So tanks are pretty straightforward. I would just kind of learn how to build tanks on the Rift, and that'll help you. But honestly, there are some team comps you just can't win.
Yeah.
Like no matter what happens, you just get stuck on like Renekton, and then like Elise, and you're playing into like Soraka, Twitch, Jhin, Maokai, and some other tank. I think the perfect ARM comp is an AD carry, a support, 2 tanks, and a mage. It's just insane. You can't beat it.
Yeah, I think tanks are really powerful when you get
tanks are crazy, dude.
And people try to re-roll because they want to go all those carry builds. They want Ziggs, they want Soraka, they want Sona, whatever. And of course, there's always that like 3 healer. I know healing is reduced, but like 3 healing IR and a couple DPS actually does quite a bit for you as well. But like the number of Arams, I think I have something like 3,500 Aram games in if I look at my win-loss ratio.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. I don't know how I have that many.
So I think the first thing is definitely champions. The second thing is adapting your build to what sort of damage is on the enemy team. And the third, this is an interesting one, skill. You can still change your skill orders because remember, you're not Summoner's Rift. You're not going to be maxing things because you want to heal on the map or because you want to get around quicker. You're just fighting all the time. So you got to pick the ones that help you fight the most. So for example, when I get Kha'Zix quite a bit on Aram, I love playing on Aram. I'll always build a man immune because I love to be able to spam his abilities. And it synergizes fine with his kit. I mean, he has too low mana to just team fight all the time. And then I will always... I max the same order. I'll max Q and then W and then E. E is the jump. But I'll always upgrade my wings first because I want to be able to get the extended range and the resets because everyone's going to be low and I'm team fighting all the time. And then I can hop under the tower, kill someone, hop out of the tower, and keep doing it. Because I have a man immune, I won't run out of mana. So... that's a pretty cheeky little thing. So maybe try and switch up your build or your skill orders.
So one of the tips that I have is that there's some like team comps where it seems unwinnable, but you actually can win the game through just engaging early on. A lot of people like to stand back. I think they have like the Ziggs mindset in Aram or whatever. We're just gonna poke, and eventually at 6 we're gonna engage. But like if you're playing a team where you have no poke, you have to engage early and engage hard and engage all the time, essentially, as long as the team is there. Because if you're not engaging, you're losing. You're just getting poked out for no reason. And granted, it does go back. There are some team comps that just won't win in Arams, but like if you have that Maokai or whatever, Maokai, but you have a Malphite on your team, Malphite's not going to engage, but Maokai can, right? Or if like you just have to go in and pick targets and try to pick people off and try to get that extra gold and just survive by keeping the waves taken care of without getting poked down. Arams, they're terrible. I hate them. I understand why people play them, but they do, and I'm gonna right now dispel something. Arams do not make you better at team fighting on the Rift at all. Zero. I've talked to too many people in real life that have told me I play Arams because it makes me better at team fighting. It doesn't. It does not make you at all better at team fighting than on the Rift because it's a completely different beast.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it does help you with target selection.
I don't think it does at all. People do not target the right things because the map is just it's this little line, right? And it's like playing Aram is like fighting in the jungle all the time, where you're stuck in this little area, but you can't flash over walls or anything. Or it's like it's like fighting in the river without any ways to get out. You're stuck in a straight line. And a lot of times on the Rift, there's a lot of little tricky things you can do, setting up, like Caitlyn traps and whatnot to block off entrances so that you get these free things, and you don't get any of that. It doesn't help you team fight the same way as if you're on the Rift. Like, sure, maybe it helps you have a better understanding of how to watch what is going on when everything is exploding around you. Sure, I'll give you that. But I just don't think in general it gives you a good idea how a team fight plays out, because you're not playing against traditional team comps.
Sure, you're not playing against traditional team comps, but you'll always get the sense of what sort of damage the champion you're playing can deal to other people who have item parity with you, which is pretty cool. So if you're playing like an AD carry, you can understand how much damage you get to deal to a tank that's running at you, or a mage or whatever. So that's what I find. There's some good things that you can get from it, but the team fights, typically they're not going to be the same ones you find on the Rift, for sure. But yeah, there's still some things in there. But yeah, for builds, you can always just look up the champion on op.gg and just pick the most classic build. Maybe if you got more AP, throw in a bit more. You need an earlier void stuff, do that. But I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of it is just champions. I'm sorry to say that, but my sister has no oppressive ARAM player. She just has only the best ARAM champions. She has a super high win rate. She doesn't really know how to build champions properly, but she has Galio, and she'll build tank items on him and then just engage.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
So she's one of those people, huh?
She's got her Sonas, she got her Sirakas, she got all the cute skins,
the Veigar.
Yeah, she loves Veigar. Yeah, that's right.
Everybody loves Veigar, Ziggs, and Sonas.
I think Veigar. I don't think Ziggs is as good. I think Veigar's insane on ARAM though.
Yeah, Veigar.
Oh, and also Dark Harvest is so OP on ARAM.
Yes,
it is
yes,
so
it is.
OP. If you're a fighter or an auto attacker, just take Dark Harvest. I take it on everyone. I took it on Ezreal the other day, and my Qs were chunking people for half their health.
Yeah,
It's
everyone's
just crazy.
constantly dying, so you're constantly having souls drop. So you'll stack that Dark Harvest so quickly.
Just take Dark Harvest, even if you're playing like a tank with an auto attack reset. I mean, I wouldn't take it on like a Sedge or something, but unless your champion has a crazy good keystone for them, just take Dark Harvest.
Yeah. Also, for infinite mana blitz. Tier Grower. That shield procs, and suddenly you have a 4,000 point shield.
Yeah. Just
sounds bad. I just build full AP on him.
Well, yeah, that's the more practical one.
You just have to hit your hooks. Like if you get blitz and you can't fucking hit a hook, can you just trade it to somebody else?
Also, I'll say one more thing. You have to understand your role in your team comp. So if you're Malphite and then you've got 380 carries on the support, you're not a full AP engage champion. You should probably be a tank so that you can soak damage. So knowing your role is good too. But sometimes you're in a team comp with a Maokai, a Nautilus, and a Shen, and you're playing Malphite, and you're like, all right, boys, it's full AP time, and that's when it's okay. You just have to know your role.
Yep.
So,
all right, let's move on to the next question here, since we need to keep blowing through them. Yeah, it does. I remember when Aram's, I don't want to call first came out because it was Arab before it was Aram, but I always talked about doing
racy.
Yeah, well, it was all random, all bot because it was Dominion.
Okay.
And we always talked about doing like professional ARMs, or like, allowing the marksman, for example, to take all the CS so that they can get to their items more quickly, or finding the person in your team that's more likely to carry. It was back in the day when it first started. It never happened, but I always thought it would be an interesting idea to try to form a strategy around ARM. Anyway, just throwing that out there. Sleeves writes in, I'm a bronze 2 player, and Anonymous Dragon is hovering over it. I think that is that you, Beaver? Are you Anonymous?
That's me. I'm a hoverer. Whenever I read, I do that so I can, because I don't always read black on white as easily. It kind of hurts my eyes, so I do that to be able to read things.
All right.
Highlight it.
I'm a bronze 2 player, and I've been having great success climbing with my one-trick Galio in mid lane. I feel like I'm a decent player, but one problem I have is a very low CS score. Some games, I'm even below 100 by the end. I know this is really bad, especially for a mid laner, and I think my biggest problem is that when I decide to roam or set up a play with my ult, sometimes the time I spend setting up a roam or an ult to nothing but lost CS for me. How can I most effectively set up my lane so that I lose as little CS as possible while roaming? Who the hell's Vrail with this question? Do we just come back to this question next week when Vrail's around?
We can do, but I can talk to the low CS scores. So I sent Vrail a picture yesterday, and I'm going to bring it up. For my game that I played as Trinity. So it was a 28-minute game. I had 282 CS. The next closest on my team was 114, the 80 carry. So, and then enemy team, their jungler was at 100, their mid laner was 160. So they're like, almost double flame horizon at that point. So basically what I noticed was that everyone decides to just fight all the time, but there's no like break in between. When they're not breaking, they're either dead or they're running to where the fight is. Sometimes you have to realize like that fight's over, they're gonna win it. I'm just gonna go mid and push out the wave. So just like you have to balance CS with fighting. Like there are times when you just ask yourself, are you gonna make an impact in that fight, and calculate all the time that you have to get there. You sort of got to realize that, because if there are waves sitting there pushing into your tower top lane, maybe that's a little bit more important than going to scrap out that 4v3 for the enemy team.
A lot of Sleeves' question goes back to what we talked about when Bop wrote in, and we kind of went off on the bronze.
Yeah, we kind of popped off on it.
Go back, rewind the podcast by 15 minutes, listen to what we said again. That's exactly, that answers your question, Sleeves.
Yeah.
So. Aquario writes in, I used to be a Sejuani one-trick pony, but I've since picked up Warwick. Between those two, do I currently have enough in my jungle arsenal to climb out of bronze and silver? Yes. Do I need to add an assassin jungler such as Kayn or Rengar, or perhaps someone less niche like Jarvan Fourth?
Dude, no. Those are my two champions for climbing rank 2, and I got to diamond with them both last year. And if both of them were banned, that was the only time I'd play another champion, and it was Kha'Zix. So no, just stick with those two. You don't need anyone else. If you really want, you can add an assassin for like super specific niche comps, but I don't think it's necessary. Warwick does enough damage that you'll be able to be good, and I would just pick them both situationally, right? So if you want a blind pick, maybe Warwick's a little better because he's pretty well-rounded jungler, but if your team is high on damage and low on engage, maybe you want to pick up Sedge.
Sedge is a fantastic all-around pick.
She is fantastic. She is fantastic.
Yeah, so if you're a Sejuani one-trick pony, absolutely just keep with that. If you want to add a third, like this is one of those, if you're a one-trick pony, you're a true one-trick pony, you are always picking Sejuani no matter what your team has. If your team has a fucking Malphite Galio, you're still picking Sejuani because you're just going to overwhelm them with CC and attrition, right? But like you're not looking at Warwick unless you have to. But if that happens, I would say out of any of those, go ahead and just pick up Kayn. Because I think in bronze and silver, Kayn if you understand the mechanics and master the mechanics of Kayn, he can be an overwhelming, oppressive jungler if you play red Kayn. Don't play blue, play red Kayn. Continue to be that tank for your team, but red Kayn is phenomenal.
I still think Warwick and Sedge are a million times better than Kayn in bronze. It's so important to have crowd control.
No. I didn't say don't play Warwick and Sedge.
Of course.
I said if both those are banned, I think Kayn is the go-to. I don't play Rengar. I think Rengar's too hard, and Jarvan's great too, but I think Jarvan's a little more feast or famine out of Rengar's probably the most feast or famine out of the three. If I had to pick, it would be least to most, it would be Kayn, Jarvan, Rengar. Like Rengar being the most feast or famine.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to necessarily put an assassin in there. You could always throw in Rammus too. I played an oppressive Rammus game the other day. Great champion. He deals damage.
The only problem I ever have with recommending Rammus, and I know he's phenomenal, and I think if you're a good enough jungler, you should absolutely play him, with all those said, is that Rammus has a specific playstyle that's outside the normal jungle playstyle, like Sejuani, Warwick, etc., because you're not spending so much time farming. You're spending a lot more time ganking or trying to be oppressive around the map, because he generally, he farms a little faster now than he did previously, but like you're spending more time counter ganking, or you have a better understanding of how the game flows to play Rammus than you do if you to play Sejuani or Warwick.
I don't know. I think he's pretty much the same. All three of them you want to be ganking. They're all great gankers. You just want to be snowballing leads, right? Picking up kills, farming in between your ganks. I do the same thing, all three of them, to be honest. I see what you mean. Like, yeah, he's maybe not. Warwick's the worst farmer of the three prior to picking up his Tiamat, and then Rammus is the worst of the three after that, for sure. And Sedge is just good at all times of the game.
I keep seeing people bring up Sejuani, Warwick, right? But why aren't we... shit, I know why. Never mind. I answered my own question in my head. I was going to say, why aren't we recommending Zac? But that's because I was assuming Zac was the same as previous with his Q. If his Q wasn't so hard to use, I'd probably recommend Zac over everybody. He's much harder
to play. And he also he has much different gank paths, too, with his E. So you need to know how to use that. He's still good for sure.
Gank paths aren't that big of a deal. I understand. Same thing with Kane, right? Like he's got crazy gank paths because he can just fucking run through a wall and avoid all wards. But yeah,
Dude,
his Q is really hard.
Yeah, he's definitely a little trickier to play for sure.
Even if they do ward, they don't look at him.
And you have to know how to you can kind of just like AFK on the other ones when you're farming, but you have to be picking up its blobs and stuff. So you have to move in a specific way as well.
Nothing wrong with that. Honestly, like I know you're.
He's solid too, dude. You can just pick him up as well. But I just don't think he deals as much damage as the other ones. So that's why in solo queue he's not quite as good. But in like a flex environment, he's fantastic.
Do you play Zac at all?
Me?
Yeah.
I used to. I haven't played him since the rework. I don't really understand. No, to be honest, I just haven't tried. I probably should. He fits my playstyle, but
right. Well, I mean, it's not like we've been playing a lot of flex recently. It's coming kind of hard to get any of us around to play. But I just
find in solo queue, if I don't trust my teammates to run away with the lead that I give them, Zac can't always do as much by himself as the other ones can. Like Warwick, if you get a lead on Warwick, you just run around killing everyone.
Sure.
Which is pretty sick. So, yeah.
All right, let's talk about All Vision's question. What do you guys know about Diana? I know Electrocute is usually what is taken on her, but lately I've been trying a tankier Aftershock Roa build. Is there any reason not to build what all the top Diana players are building, Electrocute Burst? If I'm really playing a different game than the top players, should my builds reflect this as well? I think I ended up looked up his Diana. If I remember correctly, he only had like a 40% win rate or something. So I think it's outside of what you're doing with a Diana. I think you're potentially just picking bad opportunities to use the kit that you have.
Yeah.
Excuse
Diana, me. I used to play quite a bit of Diana. She's sweet. But yeah, she's like a burst assassin, basically. You can build her a little tanky, like a little bit more burstery. The idea that she's a bit more burstery is because once you've used your burst damage, you can then stay in the fight with her shield. And her passive, which is like the auto every few auto attacks, you get some AoE magic damage. So that's why the Nashor's Tooth build with the Roa used to be popular, but I think most people just build full AP now. And I watched my friend get destroyed by S Diana 2, the one trick from Challenger, and it was hilarious. So
yeah, I know a little while back, like at the end of January, Scar put something up on Twitter that said that Aftershock Diana didn't feel too bad, but I think overall the Electrocute is going to be the better bet because otherwise you're trying to split what you're trying to do on that champion.
Yeah.
And
Aftershock.
Sorry, it looks
like when you go in, you're trying to kill, right?
It looks like it's either phase rush or Electrocute. No Aftershock Diana. Because, well, granted, too, you look at the tree. Yeah, the Keystone might work really well because of her kit, but, like, there's nothing else in that tree that gives you any kind of damage or burst. Like, all you become is this, like, pseudo-tank that you might as well have played something else with Aftershock.
Might as well play something else. It's like playing Aftershock Riven. It's just garbage. That's not the point of the champion. The point of the champion is to kill people, and same with Diana, right? So just pick the one that synergizes best with your kit. I'd say you just go Aftershock. And your build, you can switch that up though, for sure. Yeah. You can definitely build Roa Tooth if you want to play a bit more split pushy. But
a lot of people are going Electrocute Resolve secondary, right? Like they're putting up that extra armor, magic resist, or whatever it is in the secondary tree. Whatever you feel you need for the matchup. But it's a mixed bag with items. Nashor's Tooth is fine, but most people, it looks like they're going GLP and Zhonya's Hourglass, or even Roa if they can get ahead. So
no, they're going Protobelt.
I meant Protobelt. I said GLP.
To close the gap.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go Protobelt, Leandry's Tooth, Lichbane, Zhonya's Deathcap, any of those items in combination. Yeah.
You don't necessarily Nashor's. Like hell, yeah, you're right. Any items, any I think Nashor's and items is fine.
Nashor's and Lichbane would be the two like for ones you switch out. If you're playing against a more bruisery team where you're gonna need if you can't just one shot them, I would probably go for the Tooth because it gives you a bit more sustained damage. Or if you're jungling, the Tooth is great. And then if you're going for just a one shot squishies, you can build Lichbane, right? Mm-hmm. It's just game to game basis. Sure, but I think Protobelt's super sick on her, so definitely use that because it helps you get in range for your first Q, and then you can ultimate onto them, and then you can do it a second time. So it definitely helps a lot.
You were saying, Lancever?
Oh, I said she has a really rough early game too, so she's kind of like a Kali in that sense of before 6, I don't see you getting on top of anybody else. So that's a really finicky lane that you have to play. Really hard lane that you have to play.
She's like a Kali without the shroud.
Yeah.
And what's funny about her though is like if you do anything to fuck up, in lane against Diana early, you can still get bursted out and killed, right? She can land a QWE combo or whatever it is and still burst you pretty hard and force you out of the lane and then make you respect her until 6. There's, we say a lot of times where like you have until 6, but there's not that long until 6. It's about 6-7 minutes before you're hitting 6 in a solo lane. So like you really don't have that much time to sit back and relax, right? So a lot of those champions people avoid because of that reason. And granted, she has some other problems outside of that when it goes as the game goes longer, but like I'm kind of reeling back from the saying that you have to wait until 6 because that's always the thing with Nasus forever, and he's been popping off the last couple seasons.
That's a little different. His enemy laners don't necessarily have the tools to kill him these days, so that's the difference there.
A lot of the
but
mid laners right now,
if you're playing Diana into like Aurelion Sol, you're just gonna get killed at level 2 by any good player, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just gotta be better.
That's why she's probably like seen out of the top a little as well. She's just like not popular only because there are champions that do what she does better, right? Like Akali.
Yeah.
All right. Well, excuse me. All right. Tomart writes in, I tend to go through ranked phases of maining a select champ in different roles. I seem to find great success for 10 games or so, then switch roles. My problem is that I feel I'll only ever climb so high with this method. Do you recommend maining one specific role or having a few champs ready there, or is it better to have 2 champs ready in each role so I can keep rotating? I'd say, honestly, it's better just to main one role and a handful of champions, if just not one. If your goal is if your goal is to just climb and you're trying to get as high as you possibly can, your best bet is always to main one role with one champion and learn every single thing about that champion that you possibly can against every matchup, and you will climb through that. Now, that's not to say you can't climb if you're picking ADC for 10 games, top for 10 games, etc., but you're never going to be as good as those other players that only play that one specific role all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, well said. I think Tomart, you already know the answer to this question, my man or my girl.
Whatever you are.
Whoever you are. I think you already know the answer. But at the end of the day, like if you like having fun and that's your main goal, and you don't care so much climbing is secondary to you, like you just want to play with your friends, then perfect strategy. And by all means, if you love it and you are finding success, keep doing it. But if you do want to maximize your climb potential, then listen to what Adam said and just pick one of them.
Easy peasy. Snow Spider 29 writes in, during the preseason, I made the switch from support to jungle and wanted to get a few tips on how to play Assassin junglers like Kha'Zix. Currently, my biggest problem is I'm dying way too much. Any tips beyond practice watching vids?
Yeah, watch my stream. No, okay, so for Kha'Zix, you're right. He's kind of tough. You can die on him because he's squishy, and I think your problem is, and this happens to me some games, like you're not picking the right times to go into fights, so you really have to lurk on the outskirts of a fight and go in at the opportune moments. So I usually only go in when I know I'm 100% going to get a reset, ideally. There are times when you can trade 1-for-1 with an AD carry like super late game, and it's fine. But typically I want to be going in, waiting until their support's low, jumping in, killing the support, jumping out into another bush, then they're like, oh shit, where's Kha'Zix? And then as soon as someone else is low, I go in. But he can have you don't want to be starting fights on him. That's the problem. Like if you try to start a fight and you can't finish it and escape right away, then you're gonna get killed because he doesn't have that many tools to escape with. That's what I can say. It's all positioning and what stuff like that. So he's a bit tricky to navigate, and especially in late game. Like mid game, it's easy because you have so much damage. You can just insta pop people, but late game, it definitely gets a lot harder, and you just have to be patient. Patience is a hard thing to learn sometimes.
It's really hard. I know there's a lot of times we're playing. We mention that marksman all the time, right? I know it's just in Kha'Zix, but like sometimes you have to sit in the back of the fight and maybe just get pot shots off before you can actually go all the way in and then auto attack every single time in orb walk, right? Because you have to wait for those cooldowns to be busted. If Orianna hasn't blown her ultimate yet, you can't jump in as Kha'Zix because you will get Orianna ulted in the one shot. If Malphite hasn't blown his loaded yet, you can't go in. There's just there's little things you have to watch for these cooldowns to be used that are going to stop you at any point in time before you can blow somebody up. And you don't necessarily pick target of opportunity on Kha'Zix either. Like you're picking your target of opportunity, or rather your target is almost always marksman it's marksman mid laner, and depending on what the top laner is, sometimes you're picking top laner, but you're pretty much picking squishies out. You're not jumping in and doing tanks and then trying to roll through the fight unless you're getting an easy Q kill into a reset.
And I have a couple good videos on that I found about Kha'Zix, like snowballing with Kha'Zix. So if you want to just hit me up with a DM on Discord, I can fire those your way. And yeah, another good way to do it for everyone else would maybe be to just go on op.gg. Like Kha'Zix one tricks are a dime a dozen in North America. They're everywhere. Just pick some of the top masters, download the replays, and see what they do in the later game team fights. And that'll often give you an idea of what his strengths and weaknesses are. But yeah.
And that's Heartless Beaver, for those of you that don't know his voice. He's been talking about jungle.
Yeah, you just Discord and then go in Trinity Force, and I'm in the podcasters, and you can just direct message me, and I'll send you a couple links.
Sweet. All right, Bop. He's back here, and he's going to write in again, start another 15-minute conversation. I've dabbled in the jungle with little success. I keep hearing that Master Yi is a great low MMR jungler, and I'm currently bronze. Is Yi overrated for low MMR? What is more valuable to Yi, red or blue? Should my main focus on farming, or should I put higher emphasis on ganking? Like, before you jump into this, I know that you're chomping at the bit to answer about this, but really shouldn't Bop just kind of like go back to our original conversation, I don't know, about 30 minutes ago at this point and listen to it? Because it doesn't matter what you're playing, right?
Dude, your Garen's good, but yeah, it doesn't matter. What did I just do there? It doesn't matter what you're doing. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want me to answer the Yi thing?
I mean,
are you holding me back?
I'm kind of holding you back here.
It's up to you, Coach. You decide.
I know you could tell him quite a bit about Master Yi and go on and on about it, but I think this is one of those where, like, if you're low MMR, there's other things you need to work on outside of what champions you're playing that, like, we could answer all these Master Yi questions, no problem, right? And if you want them answered, Bop, I think you need to go ahead and just message Heartless on Discord and get them specifically answered. But at this point, like, there's so many other things that Bronze and Silvers need to learn before they're learning why this champion is good and what this does, that it just negates everything that they're asking.
Yeah, you totally. The only thing I'll say on it is that when I mentioned before, we talked about it at length, so you just go back and have a listen about managing team fights versus farming. And because there's so much farm to be had in those low MMR games, Master Yi does well with gold, and it's very easy to snowball in those fights when you have a lot of gold. So I don't think he's overrated for low MMR. I think he's great just because you're able to do all those things that we said. And it's a lot easier when you can sort of step back from the game and do that. So just go back and have a listen and just stick with your mains for now.
He's not overrated in low MMR as long as you're not trying to play him as a traditional jungler where you're trying to gank outside. You can gank with red buff, right? But you're better off counter ganking than you are ganking. Not always, but for the most part with Master Yi. But even then, like, I see a lot of Master Yis get picked, and all they do is they spend their time in the jungle. And when they could be ganking lanes that are pushed up, and he could be, putting that red buff to use. Wow, they have this mindset of, if I farm to 3 items, I will carry the game. When in reality, if you farm to 3 items, so has the enemy. Like, you still have to make your presence known on the map.
But the reality is, if you invade anyone as Master Yi, you could probably kill them.
Right.
Because he's obscene in duels. It's very difficult to deal with. And he can outrun anyone in the early game. He has the highest base movement speed in the game. He's as fast as people with boots, like supports with boots won't be able to outrun you. He's just good, but you have to learn, like, why he's good. Like we said, I'm not going to go off on it right now.
Sure.
Yeah. That would take the rest of the hour.
I know, because I want to bring up, with Master Yi, if you're playing him, one of the things you do need to learn is his auto attack reset through W. Because W is a great, phenomenal tanking tool when you're waiting for your team to come, save you, or you're waiting for cooldowns to be used. But there is an auto attack reset you can do through W by popping it and moving really quick that gets you to your passive more quickly. So, like, when you're meeting somebody in the jungle, you potentially use that to burst them out. So, like, if you're going to play Master Yi and one trick him, you need to learn all the little tips and tricks on how to use his auto attacks properly.
Yeah, I think there's more important things than that. Like, yeah, that's good, but it's really hard to do unless you're standing still. So I think the most important thing to learn is how to use his Q to actually dodge things. And follow people over walls. When you see them run up to a wall and then pause before they flash, that's when you Q, because the Q has a long animation. So you can Q onto them, they'll flash, you'll follow it. Things like, if you're playing against Elise, she's probably going to try and cocoon you, so try to dodge the cocoon. Yeah. Things like that. I mean, his Q is insane. I'd say you learn, or you can auto attack then Q to, like, cancel the animation of the auto attack. There's, like, cool stuff you can do with them.
Q really makes or breaks that champion.
Don't press E when you're clearing the jungle ever, because you don't need the true damage on the monsters. You just want to get the base damage, because when it's on cooldown, you don't get the bonus attack damage from the passive. So
I watch a lot of
stuff
people
like
play
that.
Yi, and they like to engage with Q just right off the bat. And I still think he's one of those junglers where you're better off just running up into the fight, not necessarily using Q to use Q to dodge things, but it's like one of those where you're using Q to stay on top of the person rather than for the extra burst damage. Unless you're so far ahead that makes or breaks the difference.
You're right. Q does a lot of damage early, but late game it's a gap closer, and it's used mostly to dodge skill shots, because if you get hit by one, you're gonna die. So,
but cannot be slowed through ultimate.
It's pretty good.
All right,
and remember to always yell, "I was an alpha."
Dude, he has so many bugs with alpha. Don't even get me started on that. So many bugs.
All right, we'll leave it there. Chris writes that I'm a bronze marksman main. I've been playing for a few seasons now, and I often play normals with my high MMR friends. Between them teaching me and listening to you guys, I find that I can usually keep up with play, and I feel that my knowledge and decision making are higher than typical solo queue player. When I take all this knowledge in my bronze games, I find myself having to dumb my playing down. Yes. I mean, it's bronze. When it comes to things like rotating decision making, playing in general, I feel like I have to simply simplify my play and and play down to the level, or else I end up dying because I get caught out because my team didn't rotate with me. Do you guys have any suggestions on how I can continue to play at the Zelo, or with a simplified game, or should I continue to make decisions as if I was playing with my friends? Again, I think this question was answered 40 minutes ago. I hate to say it. I know we're just kind of scapegoating here with these, but that's, without rehashing everything, it was answered 45 minutes ago. Wave management, have an understanding of what you need to do.
But if you say you are playing at a higher level with all your friends, then just apply that game knowledge to your games. Don't expect your teammates to do what your friends will do, but just understand what you can do to make better decisions and not die and push waves and get gold and kill people.
That's right. Chill Pickles.
Or we can't go too much.
Oh, go ahead if you have more.
I was just gonna say, because if you're going in, but you can see that they're not rotating with you, that's still not quite up to the level of play that you're quite saying that you're expecting to play at. You're still playing lower than what you're expecting to play at, because you're not seeing them not rotate with you and still going in and dying because of it. So,
well said. All right, let's move on to the very last question in this document. Chill Pickles writes, if I roam and we don't get a kill, but they recall, is that still a successful maneuver? Chill Pickles, you asked a good question. The answer to your question is another question you can ask yourself. Did we get something out of that after the fact? Did my marksman get up an extra 10 CS, and is he staying up 10 CS? Did we get a tower? Did we get a dragon? Did we get an objective? Did we steal their buffs out of their jungle? Did we, force the, those type of things? Did we get something out of that? Did we get a flash, and now I can go back and I can gank again and get a kill? Did I get a summoner spell used out of them? Did I force them to use their potions? You got to figure out what did I make them use, and then you weigh the positive plus the negatives on that one.
And also don't forget, by the same bit, did we lose anything for it? So did I lose a whole wave of CS? Did I lose my tower? Since I was top, did my mid laner roam get a double kill bot? Same thing.
Right. That's a good one too. Right. If I left mid lane and my mid lane went top and got a kill, but I didn't, was it worth it? The answer is probably no. But the answer could also be yes, because suddenly we took a dragon or we took a tower, or I got my AD carry and marksman up 15 CS through that maneuver. So potentially yes.
In a vacuum, in like an ideal roam, like you shoved in the wave, you're not losing anything mid, nothing's going on in bot or jungle, and you go top and you force them to back, then by that standpoint alone, yes, you force the enemy back and your top laner now gets free CS and they lose CS, so that's a positive. In
a vacuum, it's good, right? But ask yourself those questions. Anytime you guys are playing anything, or you guys are looking at anything in this game, ask yourself the opposite questions, right? What did I get out of there? Okay, what did the enemy get out of there? And then I think you all have the critical decision, or critical, not decision making, but critical
thinking skills.
Thank you. To figure out yes or no to your question that you're asking. Figure out the answer to the question. So that's it. Because All Vision asked if we can take a look at his OPGG and let him know. And, well, I don't have that in front of me, and I'm not going to go over it live on air. So I'll just email you. You probably asked me like 3 weeks ago, and I didn't get there. Shit happens.
We did it. We did it, boys. We made it through.
We made it through. We did it.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Even with a 20-minute tangent.
Guys,
20-minute tangent that was super relevant to our discussion.
Yeah, no, it was a good tangent. Just
sometimes shit needs to be said, right? Sometimes you just gotta slap people upside the head and tell them, listen, quit being stupid.
Let me know if you guys want me to do that no damage Tryndamere challenge in Bronze 5.
You know people are going to say yes. So
I will do it for you, and then I'll let you know I'm streaming.
Here's the thing, Beaver. Here's the thing. I can't stand it when somebody says, I have this idea. Do you think that would be a good idea? Would you watch that? No, motherfucker.
You sure?
Just do it. If you have an idea, just do it and then post it, and people will tell you if it was a good idea after you do it. There's no reason to sit there and wait. I see so many podcasters. If I created this podcast, would you listen? Motherfucker, just create it, push it out there, and if people like it, they'll fucking listen to it. Why do you think I started? Oh,
dude, it's a good way to look for feedback.
No, you don't need it. Get the feedback after you make it. Make it. Get the feedback.
Fair enough.
There's no reason to sit there. Like people, someone will go on Twitter. Hey, I'm going to make this podcast about Victor. Would you guys listen to a Victor podcast? Motherfucker, if you made it and you push it out there, people will listen to your podcast. Of course. You just have to get it to the right sources. Don't ask people, have a good idea. Maybe ask somebody if they think it's a good idea. Like maybe ask one of your friends, you think it'd be a good idea if I did this? Well, you're good at it, so sure, do it. I could sit on a soapbox and bitch about this for 7 hours.
All right, there you just have. There we go.
If anybody out there in the Trinity Force Network community wants to make something, I don't care if it's a video, a stick figure, they want to produce something, they want to go into Heartless Beaver's chat. If they think it's a good idea, go to Heartless Beaver's chat and tell him he's a cocksucking motherfucker, son of a bitch, and then just spam it the entire time. Okay,
please
just do it. Just do it. You have the power in you, Mr. Trinity Force Network listener. You can do it. And that's it. That's episode number 512 of the Trinity Force Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Yeah. We will see you all for patch 8.4 on Wednesday. Peace.
See you guys.
Later, dogs.